Hello everybody, and today I'll be doing a Gym Leader Challenge set review of the Mega Evolution set. So starting off with Meganium, it has the Wild Growth ability where each basic grass energy attached to your Pokemon provides 2 grass energy, and you can't apply more than 1 at a time, which is irrelevant. This is basically a strict upgrade to the Jungle Totem Venusaur that saw play before. It has the exact same ability, but it just does less damage and has a higher retreat cost. And this pairs very nicely with Rillaboom with the Voltage Beat. Once during a turn, you can search your deck for up to 2 grass energy from your deck and attach them to one of your Pokemon and then shuffle your deck. So this gets 4 energy onto one Pokemon at a time with both the Meganium and the Rillaboom up, which is a very powerful combination. Next up is Exeggutor with the Wood Stomp attack. For 3 colorless, it does 60 damage and then 30 more for each grass energy attached to it. This partners pretty nicely with the Meganium, with the Wild Growth, again doubling the grass energy. You need only 2 grass energy to get 4 grass energy on the Exeggutor, pay for the attack cost, and do a whole bunch of damage. This is similar to the Zarude with the repeated whip attack, which for 3 colorless does 60 plus 20 for each grass energy attached to it. The difference being it's a stage 1 and has 2 more HP. I don't think that makes it better than the Zarude because, again, it's a stage 1. But it does partner nicely with Vitality Forest, which I'll talk about later in the video. So next up is Celebi with Time Travel. For 1 grass, you search your deck for up to 3 in any combination of grass Pokemon and stadium cards, reveal them and put them into your hand, and then you shuffle your deck. This works again with the Meganium. It lets you get your pieces. This works with all sorts of grass Pokemon. You just get all your pieces into your hand, and then if your opponent doesn't hand disrupt you, you get an explosive turn 2. And then the Vitality Forest, I'll talk about it here and then later in the video as well, where each player's grass Pokemon may evolve into a grass Pokemon on that turn they were played. So basically what this reads is, except on a player's first turn, grass Pokemon can evolve the turn that they come into play. So you break the rules of evolution, you can immediately go Chikorita into Bayleaf into Meganium and get that whole line established. Celebi finds, if you get Chikorita down turn 1, Celebi can find the Bayleaf, the Meganium, and the Vitality Forest to immediately set up your Meganium turn 2. It's just a very powerful combination. Next up is Ninetales with the Suspicious Shapeshifting attack. For 1 colorless, you discard the top card of your deck. If it's a supporter, you use the effect of the supporter as the effect of this attack. This partners nicely with the Magcargo with the Smooth Over, where once during your turn you can search your deck for a card, shuffle your deck, and put that card on top of it. I don't know if this will see any play, maybe in a fire control deck with something like Misfortune Sisters, where you look at the top 5 cards of your opponent's deck and discard any number of item cards you find there to mill them out and limit the options that they have. But fire is not in a great spot right now, and Magcargo really wants to be getting you a card that you can use to set up or continue your game plan to take down your opponent. Next up is Cinderace. I think this card's super interesting. It has the Explosiveness ability, where if it's in your hand when you're setting up play, you can put it face down as your active Pokemon, and then Flare Turbo. For 1 colorless, it does 50 damage, and you search your deck for up to 3 basic energy and attach them to your bench Pokemon in any way you like. It also has Free Retreat, which is relevant. And then this is kind of like another version of the Volcanion with the Flare Starter attack. For 1 fire, you search your deck for a fire energy. Unless it's your first turn and you go second, then you get 3 fire energy. So they both accelerate a whole bunch of fire energy into play, and then you can move the energy around with Armor's Fire Off ability, which lets you move fire energy from your bench to your active Pokemon as often as you like. And the Cinderace having Free Retreat, you can go turn 1, Flare Turbo, get 3 energy in play, retreat into an attacker, push the energy up to the attacker, and then start swinging by turn 2. So I think this combo definitely has potential, and I'm excited to see what people cook up with it. Next up is Kyogre with the Riptide attack. For 1 water, it does 20 damage for the number of water energy cards in your discard pile, and then you shuffle those cards back into your deck. So if you get a whole bunch of water energy, this can basically one-shot anything for just 1 energy, and then it recycles all those water energy. This is similar to the Hisuian Basculegion with the Upstream Spirits, which is basically the same attack. It is less limited, it's a free attack, and it shuffles all basic energy back into your deck. But the Kyogre's a basic Pokemon as opposed to a stage 1, and only needing 1 energy, it's still pretty good. You can discard all the energy with Pokestop and Professor's Research to consistently get it all in the discard pile, and then Golduck has the Double Jet, So you discard up to 2 water energy cards from your hand, and then you do 60 damage for each card discarded in this way. So you can use Golduck to take some KOs early game and apply some pressure while also discarding energy, and then Kyogre can blow up a threat later in the game and shuffle all those energy back in for use with whatever other attackers you need. Next up is Clawitzer with the Reverse and Reload ability, where once during your turn, when this Pokemon moves from the active spot to the bench, you may attach up to 2 basic water energy cards from your hand to it, and then Aqua Launcher for 3 water does 210 and you discard all energy from it. I think the best combo that this has is with the Washout Quagsire, where as often as you like during a turn, you can move water energy from your bench Pokemon to your active Pokemon. So you go Clawitzer, promote it to the active, and then you use Surfing Beach, which is another new stadium. Once during each player's turn, that player may switch their active water Pokemon with one of their bench water Pokemon. So you go into Clawitzer, you use the Surfing Beach to push up another attacker and put Clawitzer on the bench. When it moves to the bench, Reverse and Reload triggers, so you attach 2 water energy from your hand to it, and then you can Quagsire to move the energy off onto the attacker. I think this is just like a worse version of Frosmoth in Quagsire Frosmoth. So I don't know if it'll see a ton of play, but I might try and do some stuff with it because it seems like a cool card. Next up is a new Frosmoth with the Icy Fluttering attack for 1 water. It does 20 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon, and then your opponent's active Pokemon is now asleep. Putting them asleep is pretty good, especially if it sticks. If it doesn't, it's kind of just unfortunate, but it's just coin flips at the end of the day. I think this is super powerful in spread decks, specifically water has a whole bunch of spread that it can utilize. There's the Inteleon with quick shooting, where once during a turn you can put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. There's Cast Form, which effectively has the same attack as the Frosmoth. For a water and a colorless, it does 20 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. And then there's Frostlass with the Freezing Shroud, where during Pokemon Checkup you put 1 damage counter on each Pokemon that has an ability, both yours and your opponent's. So you can put a ton of damage in play with Frostlass and Inteleon, and then Frosmoth and Cast Form's attacks both do damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. So you can really just destroy their entire board in like 1 turn if you get a good enough setup. Next is the new Alakazam with Psychic Draw, where when you play it from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you may draw 3 cards. And then Hand Power for 1 Psychic, you put 2 damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon for each card in your hand. This can ramp up pretty quickly, and Psychic has no shortage of cards that just let you draw more cards. The Kadabra in the same line actually has a similar ability, but it only lets you draw 2 cards, so there's more card draw, you don't have to use Rare Candy on it. There's Gardevoir with the Shining Arcana ability, where once during a turn you may look at the top 2 cards of your deck and attach any number of basic energy you find there to your Pokemon, and put the other cards in your hand. Gardevoir evolves from Kirlia. Kirlia has the Refinement ability, where you discard a card from your hand to draw 2. And then I think all of this could theoretically pair with the Unknown Hand, where once during your turn, if the Unknown is in the active spot and you have 35 or more cards in your hand, you win the game. So I think it's just kind of like a meme deck, but Alakazam can definitely be used on its own. This is most definitely the best Alakazam that we have access to, but I genuinely might try to cook something up with Unknown Hand. I think that would be hilarious to pull off. Next is a new Lunatone and Solrock. So it finally happened. We have a fighting card that has an ability that says draw. It's crazy. So the ability in question is Lunar Cycle, where once during your turn, if you have Solrock in play, you may use the ability to discard a basic fighting energy from your hand in order to draw 3 cards. So drawing 3 cards is good. Putting basic fighting energy in the discard pile is good if you build your deck right. And this is just like overall a good card. So the next question is, what Solrock do we play? And the Solrock in this set is actually pretty good with the Cosmo Beam attack. For 1 fighting, it does 70 damage and nothing if you don't have a Lunatone on your bench, but it isn't affected by weakness or resistance. So especially in the Psychic matchup where you have to deal with a whole lot of resistance, you can come up with a Solrock and Cosmo Beam for 70 damage to take out some of their evolving basics. And take out some of their evolving basics like Ralts, Natu, and Inkay. Fighting also got a bit more support with the Hariyama, with the Sumo Catcher ability, where when you play it from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you can switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active Pokemon, and then for 3 fighting energy, Wild Press does 210 damage and 70 to itself. So you can basically cherry pick something into the active and then use Wild Press to KO it. You do 70 to yourself, but if you're using something like a Reversal Energy on it, you can kind of just use this as a throwaway to just KO something that they're building up and like either continue to be behind on prizes or tie the game, and now they have to deal with the Hariyama or take something else out, and the Hariyama can come back up and wild press again for just 1 energy. You can also use the energizing Rock Salt Garganacl to heal it when you attach a basic fighting energy from your discard pile to it. You heal 30 from it. So this again combos with the Lunatone, and it also heals it slightly, so you can give it some survivability. I don't think it's great, but Hariyama could be an interesting card to include in some fighting builds. Speaking of Garganacl, there is a new Garganacl. I swear there's one of these like every 3 or 4 sets. It's got the Power Salt ability, where attacks used by your fighting Pokemon do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. This is pretty good, stacked on top of all the other damage buffs that fighting has access to. The problem is I don't know if it's better than the other Garganacls that fighting has access to, because there are quite a bit. The best one I think is Energizing Rock Salt, where once during a turn, like I mentioned earlier, you can attach a basic fighting energy from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon. If you do, heal 30 damage from that Pokemon. So some survivability, energy acceleration, it combos with the Lunatone, but the Power Assault definitely has some merit in builds that do less damage or have attacks that do effects if they knock something out and therefore have lower damage. You can stack a whole bunch of damage buffs and start taking out things that you wouldn't normally be able to. Speaking of attacks that do things when they knock out something, there's a Marshadow with the Shadow Kick attack. For 2 fighting, it does 60 damage, and if your opponent's Pokemon is knocked out by damage from this attack, you prevent all damage and effects from attacks done to this Pokemon during your opponent's next turn. So, like I mentioned, fighting has all the ways to buff the damage. Strong Energy is plus 20, Muscle Band's plus 20, Garganacl's Power Assault is plus 30, and then Premium Power Pro is another new card where during this turn, attacks used by your fighting Pokemon do 30 more damage. So you can stack all these, take a big KO, and then your Marshadow is immune to everything. And then if you can repeatedly KO stuff with the Marshadow, you kind of just have this invincible little menace that your opponent literally can't deal with. So I just think that could be cool, especially if you can consistently get all the damage buffs on it. Finally, for fighting is Tyrogue with 30 HP. It's another baby Pokemon, so free retreat and a free attack. This one has Bam Bam Smash for 10 damage. You flip a coin until you get tails, and it does 30 more for each heads. This is kind of insane. You could like win the game turn 1 or do 10 damage for free. So it's going to depend on how much you want to invest into this Tyrogue. You can attach Strong Energy, which does not provide an energy that it needs, but it does 20 more damage. And then Muscle Band also does 20 more. And Premium Power Pro adds 30 more. So all of a sudden your Tyrogue is for free attacking for like 70. And then possibly more. It's like minimum 70. So you could definitely pull off some crazy plays with Tyrogue. It's not a great card, but it could be very, very funny, as most coin flip cards end up being. Finally, moving out of fighting and into darkness, there's a Yveltal, 110 HP and the clutch attack. So for 1 darkness, during your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon can't retreat, and it does 20 damage. It does have free retreat, and the other Yveltal that sees play is Derail, which does 30 damage for 1, and you discard a special energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. And then Clutch, the same attack, except it's 2 energy to 60 and they can't retreat. Also has free retreat. So it's going to depend. I do not play Sableye, which is Dark Control. I do not play Darkness Control. So all the Darkness Control players going to have to decide which one's better. I'm sure they both have their upsides and downsides. Clutch doing less damage on the new Yveltal is definitely better than the older one if you want to try to trap something. But Derail provides nice utility. They both have free retreat, so that's irrelevant. But I'm curious to see which one ends up like winning out and seeing more play. Into the metal Pokemon, there is Dialga with the Chrono Burst attack. For 2 metal and a colorless, it does 80 damage, and you may shuffle all energy attached to it back into your deck, and if you do, it does 80 more damage. So 160 for 3 and you lose all the energy is not great. There's Celebration's Dialga with Metal Blast, which does 60 plus 20 for each metal energy attached to it, and Metal Maker Metang looks at the top 4 and attaches basic metal energy you find there to your Pokemon. So you can kind of reuse the Dialga by shuffling it back in. You open the opportunity to Metang it back onto the field. But I think that Metal Blast is just better, and Temporal Backflow provides some utility. You could definitely play the new Dialga though, so it's going to be up to you which one you play. Next is a new Tinkaton. This one is metal, so this is the first metal Tinkaton that we have. The large swing attack for one metal does 240 damage minus 60 for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. So, not great. The Tinkaton does have a Crushing Hammer stapled onto it as an ability, where when you evolve it, you can flip a coin. If heads, discard an energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. You can play it with Crushing Hammer. You flip a coin. If heads, discard an energy from one of your opponent's Pokemon. You can definitely make Large Swing hit the full 240, but the problem is once it does, and your opponent, like, plays around the Tinkaton the rest of the game, then it's not doing anything, and it's kind of just a bad attacker. So I don't think it's great, but you can definitely play it. Next, there's a new Gumshoos. It's got the Gather Evidence ability. Once during a turn, you may use the ability to switch a card from your hand with the top card of your deck. Probably won't see play. There's an Oranguru with the same ability, but it's on a basic. The only reason that I think this could possibly see play is because there's a different Oranguru that once during a turn you can draw until you have 3 cards in your hand. So that works pretty well with Squivit, but that also means that Primate Wisdom isn't being played as much. This does kind of work in a top deck colorless type build where you want to use stuff like Max Elixir and Ether to accelerate energy into play, so you can stack the deck multiple times each turn. Into trainers, the first one is Iron Defender, where during your opponent's next turn, your metal Pokemon take 30 less damage from attacks from your opponent's Pokemon. More metal take less damage. Could be absolutely busted with Zamazenta. I don't think it's going to be great, but it's like really, really funny because you can make your Zamazenta take ridiculous amounts of damage reduction. It's got the Metal Shield ability built in where if it has any energy attached, it takes 30 less. Aegislash has the Big Shield where all your all your Pokemon actually take 30 less damage from your opponent's attacks. And then you play Iron Defender for turn, you take 90 less damage. If you use any of the like 3 tools that Metal has to take 30 less damage, you're taking 120 less damage a turn. And Zamazenta is like the best basic attacker that Metal has. So you have what is basically a like 250 HP basic attacker that can do 100 damage for 3. Unless they knock something out, then it does 220. So it could be very, very funny, especially if you stack it with all the other damage reduction that Metal has. Premium Power Pro, mentioned it earlier, during this turn, attacks used by your fighting Pokemon do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. Stacks with Muscle Band and Strong Energy to do a whole bunch more damage. Fighting can pretty easily take donks now. They have just more outs to do more damage turn 1. Premium Power Pro also opens up some spread plays. You do more damage to the active so that their active lifespan is reduced, and then you hit harder on the new active that they promote that you're already damaged because you're spread deck. I think this definitely has some use cases in fighting. Next is the Fighting Gong, more fighting support. It's the fighting equivalent of Fog Crystal, where you search your deck for a basic fighting Pokemon or basic fighting energy, reveal it and put it in your hand. I think it's just better than Nest Ball because it puts it into your hand, and there's some abilities like Hawlucha with the Flying Entry ability, where you have to play it from your hand on your bench. So Fighting Gong probably goes into most lists either over Nest Ball or as additional like Pokemon search, just so you can set up more games. Suspicious Watch is just like a better devolution spray for Psychic. You choose one of your evolved Psychic Pokemon and put any number of its evolution cards back into your hand to devolve it. This probably just goes in the Natu build for now with the plus Natu. You devolve the Xatu. This provides technically more utility than devolution spray. If for whatever reason you need to devolve your Gallade back into a Ralts, you can do that. So you can like have one retreat or something. It's kind of just equivalent to devolution spray but better for Psychic. So Lieutenant Surge's Deal, funny card, not great. Ask your opponent if they agree that each player can take a prize card. If they agree, each player take a prize card. If they don't, you draw 4 cards. So this can work in Unknown Hand, where it's like you ask your opponent, they say no, you draw 4 cards, you're slightly closer to winning the game. And then if they do want to take a prize card, you can immediately slam down a reset stamp to put that prize card back into their deck, make them draw a reduced hand size because they just took a prize card, so there are less prizes. And it's that you play their supporter, so it's like, oh, I'm not getting hand disrupted this turn. And then you slam the reset stamp and they get put down to like 3 cards because they were at 4 prizes. And they're like, yeah, we can both take a prize. Lillie's Determination, probably, like, by far the best card out of this set. You shuffle your hand into your deck and draw 6 cards. Unless you have 6 prizes remaining, then you draw 8 cards instead. This is literally just a better Cynthia, so Cynthia's out of a job now. And then Colress, also kind of out of a job. Dragon still plays Kyurem, so Colress isn't great to, like, have in the discard pile. But you shuffle draw equal to the number of bench Pokemon. So if you have a Lillie's, then a Lillie's is too short of a full Colress. And if you're playing Colress in the earlier turns to set up, then you're drawing like 5 cards off Colress as opposed to 8 cards off Lillie's Determination. So it's kind of just a superior supporter in every way. I think this card's just going to be busted, especially in GLC, because of slower games. Dangerous Ruins, it's kind of a replacement for Gapejaw Bog, where whenever any player puts a basic Pokemon except for Darkness Pokemon onto the bench, they put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. So this does put damage counters on things that are gotten off of like Buddy Buddy Poffin or Nest Ball or any supporter that puts them straight onto the bench. It doesn't matter how they get to the bench, it's when they get to the bench, they take 2 damage counters except for Dark Pokemon. The problem with this card is that the most common thing that Gapejaw Bog is used for is like Spiritomb with the Anguish Cry, which does more damage for each damage counter on it, and Spiritomb is unaffected by the Dangerous Ruins because it's a Darkness Pokemon. Other decks that could theoretically use it are like Fighting with Hisuian Arcanine, but they already have ways to get damage on their Pokemon. And then Monkey Dory with Adrenabrain, you can use it to throw the damage at your opponent, so it's kind of just plus 20 damage whenever you bench something. So there's some use cases, but I think that it's not going to see much play. Already talked about Vitality Forest, kind of a busted stadium. Get your Meganium up in one turn, get your Rillaboom up in one turn, and Grass already has Lepar from Roserade, which is broken. Search your deck for any card when you evolve it, and now you have a way to get it out turn 2. And if you have Scoop Up Net in your hand, you can get 2 cards. If you have Devolution Spray, you can get 3 cards. So you can just get a whole bunch of cards. And if you keep playing the Roserade, you can just get like 4 cards in one turn and use all those cards to finish setting up your board. And then it's like, oh, look, my turn 2 was absolutely insane. I already mentioned Surfing Beach as well. Once during each player's turn, that player may switch their active water Pokemon with one of their bench water Pokemon. I mentioned the Clawitzer combo, but the Palafin with the Justice Kick, where if this Pokemon didn't move from the bench to the active spot this turn, the stack does nothing. It's okay with this, I think. You can go, if it's in the active and it already Justice Kicked last turn, you can go Surfing Beach to switch it with one of your bench water Pokemon that has Fur Retreat back into the Palafin and Justice Kick again to keep doing it if they like try to not KO the Palafin and leave it in the active. Final Stadium is Mystery Garden. Once during each player's turn, that player may discard 1 energy card from their hand to draw cards until they have as many cards in hand as they have Psychic Pokemon in play. I don't think this stadium's great. You tend to have slightly bricky hands in GLC. You can kind of use it with Malamar's Psychic Recharge, so you discard Psychic Energy to put back into play with Malamar's Psychic Recharge, and Buddy Buddy Poffin can kind of help early game if you want to try and use the stadium. You Poffin for 2 basics, and then you discard an energy, and you thin your hand out with Poffin, and you get to put 2 basic Pokemon down, so you draw more cards off of the garden if you're drawing any at all. I just don't think it's good enough to see play in Psychic decks over something like Dimension Valley. Alright, and then the last thing I wanted to mention were there are some new optimal basics. There's a 70 HP Chikorita, 70 HP Magnemite. The 70 HP Sobble, there already was one, but this one has a better attack. The 50 HP Snom with 1 retreat is significantly better for water, so that you can retreat into Hisuian Basculin and use the the Gather the Crew attack. And then Ralts with 70 HP and the Collect attack is just better than the other Ralts that we have access to. Thanks for watching. I'll leave a couple links in the description below. The official Gym Leaders Challenge website is a great place to go to get starter deck lists for every type. I definitely recommend checking that out if you're interested in getting into the format. Cardboard Warriors has a whole bunch of community-made deck lists. That's a great place to go once you want like more advanced decks. And it's got a great deck builder. I definitely recommend using that if you plan to build any decks. And then I'll also put in the description the place that I got all the proxy images from. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and have a good night.